mode.
Good morning, good day, and good evening to all our attendees joining us for today's latest Data Science Central webinar. I'd like to start our event off today by thanking, pardon me one moment. Sorry about that. I'd like to start our event off today by thanking Pivotal for sponsoring today's event. Pivotal has been doing a series of educational webinars in partnership with Data Science Central, and they're simply a wonderful partner and a supporter of the Data Science Central community, and we are very honored to have them sponsoring today's event. I'd also like to take this opportunity to mention and show our appreciation to some of our other recent sponsors, including TIBCO Streambase, Teradata, VoltDB, Hortonworks, and Tableau, to name just a few. These past webinars and others are available on demand at datasciencecentral.com, and if you've not had the opportunity to view them, I would encourage you to take a look, as they do provide some very good perspective. Today's webinar is entitled BI for Big Data. And before we begin, I'd like to briefly review the format for today's webinar. Today's event will be approximately 1 hour long. We have a moderator and 2 panelists that I'll introduce to all of you in just a moment. We should have about 15 minutes for Q&A following the presentations. And as always, this event is being taped and will be made available on demand later on today at datasciencecentral.com. I would also like to encourage our attendees to provide questions directly to me throughout the presentation. I will be reviewing them and presenting them on your behalf during the Q&A session. My name is Tim Madison, and I am one of the co-founders of Data Science Central, and I will be your host for today's event. I'm very pleased to introduce today's moderator, David Menninger of Pivotal. David is the head of business development and strategy for Pivotal. He has also worked as VP and research director for Ventana Research, with stints at Vertica Systems, Oracle, Applix, InfoSense, and IRI Software. My apologies. Today's panelists are Mark Gamble of Actuate and Matt Madden of Alteryx. Mark is the Director of Technical Marketing for Actuate and leads a team of engineers who build and maintain reference BIRT applications. He's been with Actuate since 1999, and his background and experience emphasize both technical and business benefits of the BIRT platform. Matt is the Senior Product Marketing Manager of Alteryx. He has over 14 years experience in analytics and enterprise software industry. During his career, he has held roles in sales and marketing, both with the same goal to help organizations realize the power and benefits that analytics have on their business. Welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us today. Providing business intelligence, or BI, for big data presents unique challenges. In addition, tackling performance challenges of big data, BI tools must be able to access new types of data, present it in meaningful ways, and provide intuitive navigation for the end users. In today's webinar, we will examine and discuss the challenges and the ways in which big data users are overcoming these challenges. So Dave, I'm going to pass over the presentation to you.
Okay, thanks.
And you should be good to go.
So, should be able to see my screen now.
Yep, you're good.
All right. And what I would like to do, I'm only going to take a few minutes here at the beginning. First of all, I'd like to thank you, Tim, and the Data Science Central community for inviting us to participate and to speak with your audience. My goal is to give you a very brief introduction into Pivotal. Some of you may not know the history behind Pivotal and what we're all about and why we're interested in participating in this community. My second objective is to introduce you to some of our partners so that you can understand what some of your alternatives are for dealing with providing business intelligence on big data. And Tim mentioned some of the archives. We do have several archive presentations of previous partner webinars, so you can also see other aspects of the big data process and our partners' capabilities in those areas as well in the archive files. So let me introduce Pivotal quickly. We're led by Paul Moritz, the former CEO of VMware, and our organization was formed officially formed April 1st of this year from parts of EMC and VMware. I'll tell you a little about what those parts are in a moment, but the focus of our organization is really this collision between the big data world and leveraging that big data and applications and deploying those applications. So we expect to see a new way of building and deploying these applications and combining big data with application capabilities. And we expect that to be delivered in a platform as a service function and form. And we say here cloud independence. The platform as a service capabilities fundamentally provide you with a way to tackle the scale out issues and challenges that are necessary for today's big data applications and large user communities. And so we expect that you want to be able to do that on public clouds, on private clouds, and on your own infrastructure. And so that's what we mean by cloud independence here, not necessarily tied to a particular cloud provider, but giving you the flexibility to deploy those applications on any type of cloud infrastructure. So the pieces of the puzzle that came together and were used to form Pivotal span, as I said, both EMC and VMware. It's the entirety of Greenplum, so the Greenplum database and Hadoop distribution from Greenplum, the Cloud Foundry assets and Spring assets from VMware. Pivotal Labs is a services organization that was part of Greenplum previously. CTOS and Gemfire were other VMware assets. And I'll speak just for a moment on where these different pieces fit into the puzzle. But we've assembled about 1,250 or so employees from these two organizations into Pivotal, which we've said publicly will generate about $300 million in revenue this year from this collection of products. And we have about $1 billion valuation based upon GE's investment of $100 million into the organization. So it's a significant entity in its own right, still backed by EMC and VMware. And our portfolio looks something like this. In tackling this challenge of delivering big, fast data applications in a cloud-independent fashion, we have three layers to the architecture: a cloud fabric, a data fabric, and an application fabric. And you can see where the different pieces from the portfolio fit into the stack here. The cloud fabric is the part that gives the platform as a service capabilities and the ability to deploy across different cloud infrastructures. In the data fabric, we have a SQL MPP database in the form of Greenplum. We have a Hadoop distribution in the form of Pivotal HD. We have an in-memory distributed engine called Gemfire for real-time rapid data ingestion. And we have analytics as a service capability in the form of CTOS. Then in the application fabric, the key asset there is really the Spring frameworks. The Spring framework for Java is one of the most popular, probably the most popular Java development framework with several million users. And so these are the components of the Pivotal One platform. So bringing these pieces together, we will have an integrated offering called Pivotal One that consists of all these different components. And that'll be available by the end of the year. Today's discussion is really focused around the data fabric portion. So this is an open ecosystem. The data fabric and the other fabrics each have sets of partners that provide other portions of functionality. And in the data fabric portion, we work with a variety of vendors who can provide the pixel management, if you will, the delivery of information to the end users who are actually going to consume this information. And we have the two of those partners on the webinar today with us. But this is our focus, delivering that data to those partners, and today's webinar is to introduce you to a couple of those partners and their capabilities. You get more information about Pivotal at gopivotal.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at gopivotal. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I guess we're going to Matt next from Alteryx. And Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Let me just share my screen here real quick. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you to Pivotal for having us on here, as well as Actuate for sharing this platform with us. For those of you who aren't familiar with Alteryx, what we do, we help organizations deal with, and more importantly, we help them find value from their big data. And for us, it really starts with the line of business. Much of what we do at Alteryx revolves around the line of business, and as a modern analytics platform and solution, we're looking to make analytics accessible and agile enough to fit the changing needs of the business today. And we see a lot of these needs and challenges coming from the line of business. And the way we do this is there's really two different roles we see within the line of business when it comes to dealing with analytics. You have the producer and the consumers. First of all, the producer are people that we call data artisans. Now, these people typically have roles as business analysts or data analysts. But the reason we call them data artisans is because they have a great understanding of the industry and what they're actually focusing and supporting. In addition to that, they have an understanding of the data that helps support that business. And we feel that the understanding of the data is really an important element of getting the most out of big data. Being able to understand what to look for in that data is really key to really making the most of big data. Next is the consumer, or the people that are the business decision makers. Now, these are the folks that are asking all the questions. They want to consume the analytics or the reports or the visualization, whatever it is that the analysts are producing. They also need to have access to these results anytime and anywhere. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on how Alteryx does that. But first, let's discuss, how organizations are using Alteryx today. There are over 250 customers, or Alteryx customers, I should say, worldwide across all types of different industries, anywhere from market service providers, retail, telecom, consumer goods, and so on. All these people use Alteryx to solve their strategic analytics and big data challenges. Now, what you see in front of you are just a few of the selection of customers we have that really are using Alteryx to help drive business processes, anywhere from customer churn reduction to hyperlocal merchandising, menu optimization, retail site selection, and even multi-million row data blending. So what this goes to show is that big data isn't just relevant in what you would consider your typical big data industries like, the financial services space. It shows us that everywhere you go, regardless of industry, everyone is dealing with massive amounts of data. It shows that big data challenges are relevant everywhere. So let's go into a couple use cases of how people are using Alteryx today to help solve not only their big data challenges, but their everyday business challenges. First off, we start with Experian. Experian is a marketing information division. We actually work with the marketing information division of Experian, and they are the largest data provider in the U.S. As a global data provider in over 28 countries, Experian is focused on solving data compilation and enhancement problems within the U.S. Now, within their U.S. operations, their goal is to focus on not only building, but also maintaining and delivering high-quality consumer insight data products. And this is based off of, data from 125 million U.S. households. Now, prior to using Alteryx, they were also building and maintaining data development and services to deliver their data sets. They needed help with blending massive amounts of different types of client files and preparing them for enrichment. They also wanted to be able to reduce their data processing time. And using Alteryx, they've reduced software development overhead and reduced that turnaround time by approximately 70% on their data product deliveries to their customers. Another customer is Time Warner Cable Media Sales. As the second largest cable, internet, and telephone provider in the U.S., they service over approximately 14 million different households. They support local advertising, with multi-channel and multi-platform advertising services from cable TV advertisements. Now, what they were looking to do is they really needed to be able to improve their data processing so that they can improve their marketing and target campaigns. When they started integrating a lot of different varieties of research and proprietary data, they were looking to be able to support these advertising sales organizations with this insight on their customer behavior. And what was taking them 10 days before the process is now taking less than 2 hours utilizing Alteryx. So you can see that, speed is a big factor when it comes to not only processing big data, but also creating these target campaigns. Now, when they were working with all these different databases, before using Alteryx, they were really limited in their view and their access because they were utilizing tools like Access and Excel. Now, with Alteryx, they're able to take all of this data, which is approximately over half a terabyte daily that they're actually processing, and this allows them to create highly targeted advertising options such as voice on demand offerings to promote to similar households, as well as correlation of ads for shows that are actually being viewed at that time. Finally, there's Southern States Cooperative. For those of you who don't know who Southern States Cooperative is, they're one of the largest farm-owned cooperatives in the United States. They have over 300,000 farm members, and they purchase, manufacture, and process feed, seed, fertilizers, farm supplies, fuel, and a lot of other different agricultural equipment and services. In fact, they service over 1,200 retail locations throughout 23 states. The issues they were having is they wanted to be able to unify their customer data across multiple sources. The reason they wanted to do this is they wanted to be able to improve direct mail campaign executions as well as the results. In addition, by doing this, they felt that they also would be able to maximize revenue generated from their catalog business. Now, when you talk about retail customers and retail outlets, catalog business can be a big source of their business. And for them, this was a main source of their business. So utilizing Alteryx, what they were able to do is they were able to improve their response rates by targeting the people that were most likely to respond to the catalog mailing. And in addition to that, the fact that they improved that targeting rate, they were able to improve their gross margins because they didn't have to send out and they didn't have to make as many catalogs. Okay. So when we talk about big data, when we talk about getting the most out of that big data, it really starts with building that analytic model. And what we found that, the traditional model for building analytic data sets wastes time, money, and opportunity. A study by Ventana Research showed that people spend over 2/3 of their time getting access or waiting for others to build that data set they need. And most of the time, this is due to the fact that people that are looking to get that data set are relying upon others within the organization to build that data set, and they're also relying on other technologies within that organization to build the data set. You have one group that's actually building the data set, another group that's running the analysis on that, and then delivering the output to either the decision makers or the line of business to then, report it back up the food chain, so to speak. So there's a lot of different analytic solutions out there that are far too complex and difficult to use. They also may require some sort of coding, long development cycles. This means as a line of business, the driver for change and business improvement just wastes time, money, and opportunity because you're waiting on others to get the data right. So at Alteryx, what we want to do is we want to set that data analyst, or what we call that data artisan, free. We want to be able to put the ability in their hands to access that data, enrich the data, perform any types of analytics on it that they want, and then share those results. Time and time again, we see that this process of gathering and enriching that data and then applying the analytics performed at much faster speeds can also, narrow that time to insight. This is particularly true when we talk about big data, because with all the ever-expanding data sources now available, people have more and more data at their fingertips. They want to be able to get the most out of everything they have access to. And this was true in one of the cases I touched on earlier. Experian really utilizes Alteryx for that data enrichment, that data blending is what we like to call. They're blending those millions and millions of data rows and data sets and reducing that time to insight by up to 70% using Alteryx. Now this is a combination of Alteryx being fast and also being easy to use. We put it in the hands of those data artisans who can ask that right question and get the results quickly and easily, and then apply those follow-up questions and get the answers they need easily as well by being able to iterate that data. So how exactly do we do this? It really starts with the data. And by that, we give you access to all the relevant data you need. Regardless of where it sits, what type of data it is. The data could be in your data warehouse. It could be in applications like Salesforce and big data tools like Hadoop. It could be sitting in Pivotal. It could even be in unstructured sources like SharePoint or social media such as Twitter, or even set-top box when it comes to telecommunications or cable comm. So once you get access to that data, the next thing we do is we give you the ability to integrate and cleanse that data, blend all these different data sources together to make one unified data set. They can then take that data, enrich it with our prepackaged consumer data that comes from the U.S. Census, Experian, Consumer Household, TomTom for spatial capabilities, and Dun & Bradstreet. So all of this third-party data comes packaged with our software, which really can enhance and enrich that data set that you're creating. From there, we then give you the ability to run any sort of analysis on that data. This analysis can be your traditional statistics, your descriptive statistics. We incorporate predictive analytics through an interface and prepackaged algorithms from R. And then one of the things we do that's unique to this field is we provide with massive amounts of spatial capabilities. And that spatial capabilities can be anywhere from drive time analysis, trade area creation, to the combination of utilizing predictive analytics with that spatial capabilities for location intelligence. Once that analysis is created, we then give you that ability to distribute and share those results. The results can be shared back to a database or back to a desktop file of any type, or it can be packaged into an analytic application that can be shared on a private or public cloud. In addition, we also partner with Tableau, so you can export that data directly into a Tableau.tde extract for easy visualization consumption. So really, we give you that ability in a single solution to do all the analysis you need. So one of the things that we're really excited about here is we're really excited about what Pivotal is doing, and there are several reasons for this. We feel that Pivotal is doing some great things by injecting, the mature database from Greenplum into the fast-moving Hadoop environment. That's really because they are actually embracing the Hadoop distribution file system as well as the integration of Hadoop. And this is really the exact same approach that Alteryx takes when dealing with Hadoop. We really rely on the HDFS, and we have direct drivers that allow you to access that and really get the most out of Hadoop. What Pivotal is doing really helps support the legitimacy of Hadoop as a massive environment when it comes to big data. So we really feel that, we're on the similar path when it comes to dealing with Hadoop. And that's what really makes us excited about dealing with big data, and specifically when it comes to dealing with Hadoop. Now, how do we see ourselves at Alteryx really working with Pivotal? So really for us, we see it as a way to really get the most out of Hadoop. It's a driving force for us to use Hadoop to optimize big data. Pivotal houses the data. As a line of business tool, we're able to pull data from that repository, work on that data, blend it together, do any sort of data preparation, your data aggregations, your filters, your sorts, your selects, run some sophisticated analytics on that data. Like I touched on earlier, that statistics, the predictive analytics, the spatial capabilities, and really be able to do the hardcore analytic data preparation that takes 2/3 of that time when it comes to building that predictive model or that predictive data set or just that analytic data set in general. And then once that's done, we're then able to deliver that data set or that model back into Pivotal or out to that analytical application that I talked about, or even out into the Tableau.td extract. I think that our president and CEO, George Matthews, sums it up nicely. He says, that Pivotal is a complete game changer. Bringing the power of Greenplum's MPP query engine to Hadoop HDFS opens a new realm of analytic use cases. And, as I touched on, we at Alteryx empower data artisans to drive decisions across big data sources. We look forward to supporting the Pivotal HT as part of the new analytics stack emerging in the market. So, we are really excited about this, and, we have a lot of different developments coming down the pike in the near future that will even help support this even further than we already do. So, as an attendee and as somebody that's interested in analytics and how you can get the most out of big data, I would recommend visiting our website at alteryx.com, downloading our free project edition, and trying it out for yourself and see, if Alteryx would be the right fit for you and how we can actually work with big data sources across the board, and in particular, Hadoop. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you guys.
Great, thank you, Matt. I'm going to pass it over to Mark now. Mark, you all ready to go?
I believe so. Gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, can you see my screen?
Yep, you're in good shape. Go ahead.
Excellent. So thanks very much to DSC, to Pivotal, Tim, David, and Matt. Thanks very much for the lead-in and a nice overview of Alteryx. It's my pleasure to present today the BIRT technology, which is actually founded by and managed by Actuate. So we'll jump in here. So first off, let's take a depiction here, and we've got a variety of images here. What do these images mean to you? Well, basically it's kind of a mess, but really when we take a look at it, this could best be described as arguably big data. As we look at big data, it becomes clear that the term is simply a collective term for a variety of sources and formats that share common characteristics. Most people talk about always the 3 V's, volume, variety, and velocity. Some people throw in volatility to that. But really the key here is that big data comes in many flavors. We have network packets, application logs, petabytes of online sentiment that's growing every day. There's stored document archives in most larger companies, online social communities, online file storage such as Dropbox, and the rapidly evolving technology that's become the de facto go-to for storing this information efficiently is, of course, seems to be Hadoop. But we also find through surveys and anecdotally through our customers that often Hadoop expertise is not in great supply in many of today's companies. And that's why really any technology that can efficiently and easily bridge the gap between common standards like SQL and Hadoop standards like HDFS become a huge benefit to application development and analysis. And that's why this is really where Pivotal's FOC comes into play and is a huge benefit to the organization. So once we've defined and have amassed our big data, what are we going to do with it? Well, tools such as Hawk absolve you of having to worry about new skills or poor query performance against Hadoop. The key here is that the volume and source of data shouldn't be the main focus. It's what you can do with the data once it's properly harnessed that becomes important. With these types of data growing daily, in many cases generated by and all about your customers, the focus should become, what can I learn from the data? So the appropriately harnessed big data source can be used to learn about customers as well as provide a superior customer experience by allowing the application developers to focus on content and not on data issues. So companies can utilize this to seek competitive advantage, resolving those traditional customer-centric problems like customer churn or being able to target specific customers based on habits and attributes, and being able to respond as quickly as possible by integrating and accessing that data, that information about them as quickly as possible. So what is BIRT? Well, BIRT is an acronym. It stands for Business Intelligence and Reporting Technologies. It's an Eclipse-based open source initiative that was actually launched and founded by Actuate back in 2004. And we're very proud of the fact that it's the largest and fastest growing BI application community in the world, riding on the popularity of the Eclipse open source ecosystem. So we've measured through surveys that we believe we have, well in the neighborhood of 3 million developers worldwide, based on 12 million downloads of the software, and it's a top-level Eclipse project with a vast and thriving online community. So the benefit to most organizations here is that if you go with BIRT, you can start with the open source, start modestly and for free with your development community, and you can take advantage of this vast pool of expertise that's out there in the Eclipse open source ecosystem. And then as you decide to add new features, you can either build them or start to take advantage of the Actuate commercial value add features on top of these. So the essential architecture here is that content is created utilizing BIRT, accessing any number of data sources, ostensibly via the pivotal Hawk types of technologies. And you create content that's then managed on our commercial infrastructure called the iHub. So the iHub has the capability to take this singular type of content that you build, called BIRT content, and output it in a variety of ways such that it meets the needs of consumers across different types of application scenarios. So we find that people are building applications with BIRT that serve traditional internal business intelligence and analysis, being able to understand customers and being able to predict their habits based on past activities, for example. But this also starts to span the gamut of applications that go outside the firewall. One of the keys of the Actuate deployment environment is its massive scalability, such that we find our customers are building non-traditional BI applications where they're delivering out information from their big data sources to their own customers outside the firewall. So intelligence for their customers, giving them, for example, a competitive advantage by offering fingertip access to secure big data information. So the Actuate BIRT origins are in open source. So you can, for example, if you want to start with the open source BIRT development environment, you can go to the Eclipse website. We'd encourage you also to take advantage of our community website called birtexchange.org. Either place is a place where you can download the open source development environment, which also comes with some deployment options. Many folks ask, well, what's the difference between the open source version and the commercial value add version of Actuate BIRT? And in fact, from a technical standpoint, there's actually no difference between the content developed with our development environment. What becomes evident when you start to go the commercial route is in the value-add features on top of that content that we bring to bear. So as we look at open source versus commercial BIRT in this table, on the open source side, we see access to a variety of data sources, including Hadoop and going obviously through the Hawk layer, but the capabilities being in producing what's more considered as online reporting content, which in many cases meets the initial needs of many application developers. This free download open source development environment has the distinction of offering what many other tools offer as a commercial feature, such as the ability to join disparate sources and create unique views of the information that are delivered out as visualizations. What we add to the top of this very strong basic foundation of open source freely available capability are some additional features such as commercial drivers to other data sources that are out there in the application space, as well as the industrial strength iHub. This is the deployment environment that allows, again, for our customers to take their BIRT applications and deliver them out to user bases in the millions and millions of users. So taking the big data is one thing, but being able to deliver it out to masses of users in a useful format is really where BIRT starts to become a huge distinction out there in the BI space. So data integration, this is a fairly sort of ubiquitous slide in many BI presentations. The distinction here is that Actuate and BIRT are not prescriptive in how they ask you to acquire the data before visualizing it. We provide connectors through our BIRT iHub data services back to a variety of traditional data databases, data warehouses, as well as web services, document archives, and start to get into the non-traditional types of data access. We try to remain flexible. We don't want to force our customers into any one method or type of process for acquiring the data, such as there are competitive offerings that force a data warehouse layer or data modeling before any visualization can be achieved. Well, Actuate and BIRT offer a data modeling middle tier, but we don't require that you actually utilize it to begin recognizing the benefit of your big data. You can start visualizing it immediately. So we partner with and have strategic partnerships with a variety of big data players, Pivotal being a key here, partner that we're very proud of and are recognizing very unique benefits and some great value from this partnership. So personalized analytics, when we talk about BIRT, especially when we get into commercial capabilities of BIRT, we then talk about a variety of different application types. So these can run the gamut from internal types of traditional business intelligence and analytics, as we see depicted on the top here, visual data mining, predictive analytics, and all the way around into scorecard and KPI management, ad hoc reporting. And when we start talking about customer-facing applications, this is where simplicity and speed and efficiency become paramount. So BIRT and Actuate's flavor of BIRT are able to provide you with the horsepower to meet the needs of pushing massive amounts of data out to massive numbers of users in a very flexible and personalized fashion. So in fact, I've allowed myself just a few minutes here for us to take a quick look at what a BIRT type of application looks like, and we'll kind of look a little more into the interactive and mobile dashboard type of application. But suffice to say, for lack of time, there are also modules in BIRT that can do predictive analysis, scorecarding, ad hoc reporting, as well as mobile delivery. So with this in mind, let's jump over to an example BIRT-style application as depicted here, delivered for a customer of a large financial services organization. This is not unlike the types of dashboards that many of our financial services customers are building to provide their own clients. And what it represents here is the online consumer channel that consolidates data for basically every customer in the millions and millions of transactions, but delivers a personalized view of this individual's spending across a variety of accounts. So in a single place, we can see spending by a variety of different angles. But more importantly, these types of BIRT dashboards are intended to be flexible, so they allow the user to sort of point and click and set context on the fly. In this case, if we want to look at spending by specific categories, I can simply click and the entire dashboard changes in accordance with my context. So if we were to, let's say, settle on restaurant spending for, let's say, the current time period, I can very quickly adjust my visualization, zero in on these kinds of things. Another key for any BIRT-based visualization is the ability to also drill up and down in context with the information. In this case, I've noticed a bit of a spike in one of the months in our spending period. I've been able to drill down to a day-by-day visualization here depicting these charges. So restaurant charges are spiking here on this individual day. Let's see, for example, how that might play out across the various merchants in my restaurant spending category. So in similar fashion, I can simply point, click, and go down to the next level of information. Again, all coming from these big data sources, but being harnessed and efficiently rendered via Hawk and ultimately for BIRT for the visuals. So once we spot an anomalous charge at a local fast food restaurant, we can, for example, drill straight out into detailed information at the line or transaction level, and then ultimately even into, in this case, a depiction of our online credit statement. So this is a very quick progression, but just intended to emphasize that BIRT content can be delivered as dashboards that provide contextual drilling up and down the information, but also can drill out to interactive freestanding content. So in this case, what I mean by interactive is the fact that we're looking at a listing of charges here, but let's say I'd really rather see the information. We'll bring this up with the categories, or perhaps I'd really rather see this visually depicted. So another hallmark of any BIRT-based application is in end-user autonomy to create their own experience through these interactive visuals. So lastly, I just want to make sure that we take a look at and not forget about capabilities of mobile. So anything that you build with BIRT, regardless of the data source that it's accessing or combination thereof, once it's in the iHub environment, our deployment environment, it's delivered out as dashboards and reports, but also out to the mobile devices with absolutely no additional development required. So this is in direct contrast to other mobile BI vendors that force you to either build BI or BI for the mobile or for the desktop, but rarely for both. And BIRT has the distinction of allowing for development of a single application that can be delivered and consumed both in the desktop as well as out on the mobile device. So when we put it on the mobile device, we don't sacrifice the interactivity. For example, here I'm looking at credit charges that I'd like to filter down to my top 10. Incidentally, we also have merchant addresses as part of this data. And as such, we're able to take advantage of a visualization integration that allows us to plot those addresses as maps or as pins on a Google map. So that's kind of my big finish, and I know that we have wanted to leave about 15 minutes or so for some questions. So with that, I will let's turn it back over to Tim and start our question and answer session.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. Let me just get over here. Both of you guys, great presentations, very informative and useful. So we did have some questions coming in along the way here. And While the question and answer session is going on, I want to make sure that everybody sees that David, Mark, and Matt's information in terms of their email contacts are there. So you can take that down, and if you wish to contact them separately following today's webinar, you're free to do so. Let's jump into the questions here. So the first question, Matt, I'm going to pass this one to you. It's regarding, the question is, Alteryx seems to be geared towards the line of business. Do you really see the line of business making use of all these different sources of data?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're talking about the line of business, as I kind of mentioned earlier, you're talking about people that understand the business. So, you know, it could be anywhere from the line of business when it comes to doing marketing campaigns. Somebody needs to understand what's going on from, you know, the Twitter account or the Facebook account, some sort of social media. What are people saying about either products or services? The line of business is going to be the ones putting together these programs to help support the efforts to improve the business outcomes. So being able to utilize any means of data possible is going to be important to them.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for that. The second question I'm going to give to you, Mark. It's what is the primary difference between the open source BIRT and commercial BIRT? You went into some detail. I think they're looking for the primary differences as an overview. There were a couple questions on that front.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. The primary differences are with the open source, what you get is the development environment and a set of APIs that are intended for developers to take and integrate and or build additional capabilities on top of. So what that means is you can create content, but it's really up to you to figure out how you wish to deploy it through your own expertise with web application development. So this is where the commercial value add features come from on top of that is if you decide you'd rather not invest the time and resources to build a deployment environment, this is where the iHub comes into place. The iHub being, again, recognized in the industry as one of the most efficient as well as heavy lifting deployment servers in the industry. So in addition to that, what you get are the variety of different consumer formats. So instead of just freestanding web reports in open source, you can then deliver that information out as dashboards, as mobile information, as spreadsheets, and the like.
Okay, very good. The next question is for frankly both of you. The question is, what do Alteryx and BIRT do to enable analysis to scale across multiple big data sources? Mark, do you want to start, or Matt?
Sure.
You guys? Okay.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the benefits of Actuate BIRT is in the fact that we actually are not prescriptive, and we have an internal columnar database that we can utilize for visual analytics and predictive analytics, for example, but you're not sort of forced to utilize that, so that you can take advantage instead of the technologies that you might already have in place to handle big data, you know, such as Hadoop and perhaps technologies on top of that like Pivotal or VoltDB, Cloudera, things of this nature. So in addition, Actuate brings to the table this concept of being able to access the data in real time, so instantly, but also be able to manage and cache it for efficiency's sake on the iHub, this deployment environment. So what we see are customers that come up with applications that might be hybrid. Some of it accesses data in real time, while other might access data in batch and have that information pre-modeled and cached up for immediate analysis by the application users. So I think it's really flexibility to handle the data in the best particular fashion and not being prescriptive in how that happens on the Actuate side.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark. Matt, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, and from an Alteryx perspective, you know, what we give the users is the ability to access data from any source. blend that data from multiple sources, either on a desktop or server environment in memory. So the speed of which Alteryx does the data processing is really our money chip, so to speak. That's where a lot of people see the benefit is doing that fast data processing and data blending. And it can be done, in memory on the desktop, or it can be pushed back out to, a server of some sort to do the processing itself. It's the flexibility that kind of what Mark talked about that also is delivered within Alteryx.
Okay. Very good. There are a few questions about skill sets in terms of what someone might need to be able to properly use these applications. One, I'm going to try to blend these together, but in essence, I'm going to start with you, Matt. Do the line of business need to work closely with IT or even data scientists or specialists to really make the most of the data? And Mark, you can kind of jump in after Matt answers, but do you have to understand predictive modeling? How detailed do you really need to be in terms of that category of big data practitioner to properly use your tools? Sure.
So I mean, obviously, when it comes to dealing with big data, depending on where it lays within your organization, working with IT is always going to be critical to some extent. But what we do from a technology perspective is we give that end user the ability to access the data directly from the data source itself. That's usually through direct connectors to different sources of data or through ODBC connection. And a lot of times we see, the data analyst being able to bypass IT and in a lot of instances getting direct access to that data, not having to wait for them to either deliver the data set they need and hope that it's right. Second of all, from an analytics standpoint, we don't require you to be a data scientist or a statistical modeler. We take a lot of the complexity out of the analysis process by utilizing prepackaged macros that rely on the R programming languages specifically for predictive analytics. And it's a drag and drop environment that you just pull in the icon, click a couple parameters, run the analysis, and get the output. So you're not relying on other people within the organization, whether it's IT or whether it's that data scientist or, the SAS programmers within your organization to really do all that predictive modeling for you.
Right. Okay. Great. Mark, do you have a comment in terms of the level of expertise?
Yeah, from a skill set, I mean, the fact of the matter is that Actuate BIRT offers a variety of different, application paradigms, if you will, and from the, end user analysis or internal focus, we take a similar tack to what Matt was describing in trying to depict and encapsulate advanced analytic capabilities into a visual drag and drop type of experience that's intended to facilitate, analysis for the layperson, if you will. So I might not know what a Holt-Winters algorithm is or, what k-means is, but I can certainly, assign some of my data to some properties and say, run this algorithm and tell me, how my customers tend to be clustered, or, how will they buy based on their history, things of this nature. So trying to not, I guess, get rid of or say you don't need the data scientist, but trying to lessen the burden on that individual to concentrate on the most important analytic questions, but enable the business people within the organization the power to perform their own analysis and sort of bubble up those more important questions to the real experts.
Okay.
And and real quickly from a developer perspective, especially on the BIRT side, we also really take a firm stance towards developer productivity. So I think any folks out there that are in open source and want to explore taking a look at development, pull down the BIRT Designer, and I think you'll see that it turns things that are normally hours, days, months on basic coding, turns into just minutes with drag and drop. So,
got it. Okay, great. Thank you for the detailed answer. There were a couple questions with regards to the cloud solution. So I think it's appropriate for both of you to jump in on this as well, because there were some questions about concerns of who might actually own the data when it's on the cloud. So maybe you can address that in terms of your solution in the cloud as well as the data question of ownership. Mark,
Sure.
Matt, why don't you jump in?
Okay. Yeah. So from a cloud perspective, what we offer in the cloud is the ability to send data to an analytic application via the cloud, and that could be a public cloud or a private server that lies within your firewall. And really, from a public cloud standpoint, the data will all sit within Amazon S3. The private server obviously will sit within your firewall. The difference being in terms of being able to protect it, everything runs through Amazon S3. There's a limitation in terms of how much data can actually be set up there. You have to, in some instances, you can grant access to that data or, alleviate people from actually accessing the data. The beauty of what we deliver from an analytic application in the cloud perspective is that we give users the ability to download the actual module that makes up that application. So the module itself can be downloaded. People can upload their own types of data, tweak the model itself, and run their own analysis. So in essence, they can own that own data on their own.
Okay. Mark, do you have any thoughts?
Sure. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that BIRT has a cloud infrastructure set up as a PaaS, platform as a service, and it's basically the iHub deployment environment out on Amazon. So it's ready to go. You also get Amazon Data Services as part of this. But as Matt said, there are often instances where the security for data is paramount. So for this, we have a variety of approaches, but in short, it essentially involves either allowing access to your on-premise data sources through a set of firewall protocols that we provide, or you can take advantage of some of our caching capabilities. So you can, generate your data models and put that up onto the iHub in the cloud to run your applications on a periodic basis. And then lastly, if your data happens to already be accessible and residing on the cloud, this is actually the ideal scenario for any BIRT-based application. And the cloud offering is called BIRT On Demand.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this question is a little bit broad-based. I'll let both of you weigh in on this. And Matt, why don't you start it? How do you see predictive analytics really affecting big data or vice versa?
Well, I think they pretty much go hand in hand in my instance, in my experience as well. And the reason I say that is because, the beauty of predictive analytics is it can find the patterns or the data that you really want to focus on. So what it does to me is it really alleviates the need to look at massive amounts of data and really focus on, specific variables or specific information when it comes to doing the analysis or running that campaign or building that business outcome. I think to really get the most out of big data, you need to run some sort of analysis, and predictive analytics, to me, can really allow that business to really focus on the key elements of that massive amount of data that you're looking at.
Okay, very good. And Mark?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Matt. I mean, it really becomes accuracy, I think, is the key. The more data you have, the more accurate your predictions can become. That's a simple fact, I guess. And what's been a barrier traditionally is the fact that you start to cross a threshold when you get so much data that it becomes impossible to process. And therein lies the reason for analytic techniques that involve sampling, for example. It's just impossible to process it all. But I think now with the new technologies in place, it is possible to process it all, and thus our predictions and forecasting becomes all the more accurate as a benefit.
Right. Okay, very good. Well, I'm sorry to say, but we are out of time, so that will have to be the last question and answer. For everybody that had asked questions, please rest assured I'm sending all the questions that were answered today to the panelists, and they will be able to reply to you directly. So thank you for your participation. I have just a few quick announcements to please mark your calendars for September 24th and our next Data Science Central webinar, Predictive Analytics, the Modern Data Architecture, sponsored by Hortonworks and Revolution Analytics. Also, as I mentioned earlier, today's taping will be made available later on this afternoon at datasciencecentral.com on the video section, which is on the lower right-hand side of the page. This brings today's webinar to a close. I'd like to thank our audience for their attendance and their very thoughtful questions, and a special thank you to Pivotal and David Menninger for their sponsorship and insight into today's topic, as well as our panelists, Mark Gable and Matt Madden, for their insight and perspective and participation as well. My name is Tim Madison. I'm very pleased to have been your host for today's event, and I look forward to seeing you all on September 24th. Good day.
The organizer has ended the session, and this call will be